What's up, YouTube? Paul here, Left Coast Model Car Builds. Happy Friday. Hope you guys had a great week. Not too bad over here, feeling good, being back home. And we got back yesterday. It's been nice. Hopefully get some bench time in here over the weekend. So, want to jump on real quick. Our buddy Jason over at Blue Ox Model Shop posted a community question, a good one. So, these community questions are great. They get you thinking a little bit. That's fun. Keeps you another way keep the mind going in the hobby. So what I'm getting from the question, it sounds like, is if you build for contests, shows, at what point do you feel a build's good enough, or is it good enough? Should I take it? Should I not? And how do you get past that mindset of whether you want to call it doubting yourself, feeling good about your build, feeling like you can compete? I think in a nutshell, that's what he was getting at. So here's my 2 cents. When I was younger, I was very ambitious with building. I have projects here that are cut up that I started that never finished that have a lot of potential. And hopefully we'll finish some of those. Now, here where we live directly, there's not a lot of contests, not a lot of shows. We just lost, NNL West, which we went to pretty much yearly since the early 90s. A few other shows, contests that used to be around that we went to, and it was a lot of fun. Now, myself, I raced RC cars, played baseball, did other things, but I was never the most competitive person. I enjoyed it. I was normally pretty good at maintaining nerves, things like that. Now, granted, sports can be a little different than model car building, stuff like that, but one thing I look at with model car building is you have a couple different aspects here. Shows, contests, as much as you're competing with other people to try to get that award, if that's, what you're after. There's also the social part, social networking, meeting people, talking to old friends that you may only see that time of the year, right? So there's different things going on there, at least the way I look at it. Now, I'm going to kind of tie some of this into my experience with shooting pool because, well, there are 2 different things going on. Part of it goes hand in hand. When you look at the hobby as a whole and you're, trying to be a part of whether it's a community, promote your hobby, things like that, there's different ways to look at it. So with pool, per se, I played in local leagues, played in cash tournaments, gambled, things like that, but to a degree, right? You kind of have some type of an idea of who you're playing, so it's a fair game. Maybe they're giving you some weight to level the field, things like that. So model car building, definitely different, although, you know who some of the heavy hitters are in shows, and similar to a pool tournament or a league, contest in your area could be very different than traveling, right? So what I'm getting at is with our pool league, 9-ball, the highest skill cap was a 9, I was a 7, or am a 7. 8-ball, the highest skill cap's a 7, I'm a 7. So there's a group of us that hover in that range. Now, granted, just because you have that skill level, I know a couple of the guys were the same skill level, but probably 6, 7 out of 10 times they're going to win that game, right? Or that tournament over me. And that's fine. Could be different things. And, at one point as a higher level player, I didn't practice. I didn't warm up when I got there. I just played my match and tend to do decent. There were seasons I won MVPs over people that were similar skill levels, and they were playing every day, practicing every day, doing stuff. So I felt good about it. Now, Model car building, the way I see this relates is when you say, is my, I'm building this, is it good enough to go to a show or a contest? Well, if you're familiar with your area, you may feel comfortable taking it to the local show where your buddies from, say, your club, not too many surprise folks that pop out of the woods, so you feel comfortable. Now, a model that, say, you or your buddy wins with, that let's just call it the local show, maybe you get best in show, maybe you get first place in your class. Now you go somewhere like Salt Lake City, and that model that won at the local show, you may just say, I'm just going to put it on the display table. It's not going to compete, right? So to me, there's different mindsets. It's like in pool, you get those same group of people, you're playing each other locally, and then when you go out of town, it's a different ball game. Your nerves change, right? Same thing with modeling, I think. Although modeling, you know what you're taking in certain areas, you know where people live, how they build. So I think it's really cool. If you take the view that you're there to kind of promote the hobby, have fun, network, then yeah, it's great. Take your model, have a blast. If everybody felt like, I don't know if I'm going to win, so I'm not taking my model, well, everything would die out, right? It's like in pool. You see people go play tournaments because they have the money, they have the time off. They're not going to win. They're just going for the experience. Maybe I'll play a pro, learn a thing or two, right? Other people, well, I'm not going to win, so I'm not going to go. I'll go somewhere else where I have a better chance of winning. Well, and that's, whatever works for you. But to me, promoting the hobby is kind of not, in one sense, it's doing all you can to promote it, right? I haven't been able to go to many contests because we have a lot within our local area. My plan this year was to hopefully have a few detailed builds and go to some shows out of the area. I still am hoping to, but it's changed a little with my daughter being pregnant with twins, because I'm going to be probably spending some time out there in Texas later this year. So I've got to have some money set aside for that and some time. But I guess kind of like Jason is in his videos, he's going on. This can go all different ways here. So it's kind of hard to stay on point, I guess. Well, point has a lot of variables, a lot of shades of gray. But at the end of the day, my view on it is, aside from wanting to compete or trying to compete, it's also the aspect of promoting the hobby. And as much as I like to hope I'm promoting the hobby in a positive way through, say, YouTube, right? I think being out and participating in a show or contest is another way to help promote that and make sure it's there next year, right? At the end of the day, whether there's 20 models that show up to a contest or a show or 200, chances are they're handing out the same amount of awards, right? So your percentages may change, but you're there to promote, to help, hopefully help them promote it, so it'll be there next year. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And as far as a lot of my builds lately, they're, what I call more curbside, even though some do have some, plumbed engines, things like that. To me, a curbside doesn't just mean it's slammed without a chassis or nothing. To me, a curbside something it may go to a show or a contest on a display table. I do have a few builds this year that I'm hoping by the end of the year I'll have one or two that'll be nice, and I would feel they're worthy to go to a contest. Now, I know they won't compete with some of my friends' builds, but for me, it's pushing my limits, and that's another thing Jason pointed on. If you're truly wanting to continue to grow, your skill and hone that skill, then getting out and going to shows and contests is a great way. One, the times that you may not place or you get beat, just being able to look at the models, even though judging can be, it can have its ups and downs too, right? Let's be honest there. But realistically, looking at your competition and trying to understand why they, got outscored your model is a huge help. If that's something you think you're going to be doing, is building, competing, right? There's no better way to know how to improve than seeing what your competition, as we say, or your friends are doing. So those are just ways I look at it. Some folks, they may go to a contest, not win anything, go home, and it might, not that it, say, hurts their ego, because not everybody has that high hopes, but they just may say, man, that's just not for me. I'll never do stuff like that. And that's fine. There's still nothing wrong with going, displaying your work, and talking to folks, and that's where I think some of it's just getting through the front door, right? And taking that step, and then you realize, hey, I may be in an area where there's some top class builders, and I may never win, but I'm having a blast, and getting some good feedback on my work, maybe some critiquing that helps me grow, hone my skills. That's awesome. So that's kind of my view on it, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be someone better, no matter what, whether it's the next town, the next city, the next state, across the seas, somewhere, there's going to be somebody. So get out there, support the hobby, and have fun. It's like YouTube, right? How many of us with our channels, I think buddy Mikey there, Scale Model Outlaw, mentioned it on the AMC show. You go back and look at his first few videos, as he said, this was his words. And he's like, yeah, they're just, compared to what I'm doing now, just the video, the presentation, night and day, right? Same thing with mine. You go back and look at my first few videos, and it's just it's a level of comfort, right? Now it's like I can flip the camera on and talk, whether it's, doing something live, trying to build, doing my Throwback Thursdays. It just comes natural. You build that kind of friendship, camaraderie through the community. It's no different with contests and shows. When I was young, going to NNLs, it was intimidating. You walk in and shoot, there's 1,000 models out there that are, especially as a kid, I'm like, man, there's 1,000 models out there, and they're probably all better than mine. Now I walk through those doors, and you're saying what's up to everybody, catching up with everybody. Check this out, check that out. Let me show you what I'm doing. Hey, how do I do this? That's what's great about the community, So those are little things I look at and take and pull that make it easier for me to build something and take it to a show and not worry so much about whether I'm going to win or lose. And as far as trying to, improve my skill, I always am, but for me, not necessarily being as competitive a person. I know I look at some of your guys' builds, and if I sit down and try to do that, I'll get burnt out, put it away. That's why I got all these projects here. But that's just me. Everybody's different, right? So with that, we've gone over the 10-minute mark. So we're going to kill it here. Hopefully that answers your question, Jason. Hopefully it made some type of sense. And we'll catch you guys probably tomorrow. So have a good one, everybody. Happy Friday. And we'll catch y'all later.